Hi y'all, welcome in. Today we're gonna be doing a reading vlog because I just got Yellowface by R.F. Kuang on my Kindle, and I've been looking forward to it since I put down Babel like 4 months ago. This is the new one from her, so I'm really excited about reading it. If y'all don't know, it's basically about these two girls, one who is Asian American and one who is white, and the Asian American girl, Lou, she dies, and so the other girl steals her manuscript and then basically pretends to be Asian to get like accolades and awards for her like publishing book for this manuscript, but the manuscript was the dead Asian girls. um and so like obviously the entire book is like, this is an awful main character and I'm so curious to see where she goes with it. Obviously it's going to be her own commentary on the publishing industry and how she's dealt with it over the years and that kind of stuff. But I'm super excited to delve into it. So
Fun?
Mhm.
That's good. You so distressed.
I am. Like, this is so good at making me hate her.
I think that's okay.
Yeah, I just, ugh. The lack of self-awareness is deafening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. Want to take a breather and see my house?
No.
Amazing.
Can you show me it a little bit? Ugh. She goes, I'm white. Are you saying we'll get in trouble because I wrote the story and I'm white? Yes, girl. That's exactly what we're
Oh, is
saying.
this that yellowface book?
Yeah!
Oh, no, yeah.
That's why I'm like losing my mind over here. Yeah. And you're not anything else? Oh, man. Oh. Stop. The editors are just as bad as she is.
Alright, let me go see if I can get a place here.
Okay. I'm not like other girls. I hate my niece because she's on TikTok. That's literally what it says. She's like, I hate my 8-year-old niece because she's on TikTok and doesn't want to read books with me. I'm not like other girls. I'm not on TikTok.
Oh, it's getting worse, actually. Based on the water.
Yeah.
I did want to say here at the halfway point that I feel like I'm missing some nuances here. Like there's some very specific things that I probably am not like picking up on the irony of. Just like I feel like probably if you're in publishing or have tried to get your book published or in the writing industry, like or are a published writer, anything like that, I feel like there's some nuances that you would catch that I wouldn't. And then also obviously some nuances with all the arguments going on. Like I'm just kind of consuming everything right now. Like obviously Juniper is in the wrong here, like hardcore in the wrong here. But some of the other arguments that are being put forth by different characters, I'm like just consuming everything basically, because like they go from not just attacking Juniper as a white woman, right, stealing and writing a manuscript about Chinese labor, but and the fact that she literally like rebranded herself with a more Asian sounding name to publish that book and not with her other books, which is sketchy. But they go on to then attack her dead friend, who is Chinese American, for like glorifying, like romanticizing Chinese lives and like all this stuff. So like there's a lot of like, also it's like a Twitter fight, and so I'm like, is this her misdirection? Is this misdirection? Or is this a legitimate argument being put forth? I don't know. I would love to hear some of y'all's thoughts, because I'm just like trying to consume everything basically. But definitely 10 out of 10 so far. I'm 70% through, and she is doing some J.K. Rowling behavior. I mean, like, girl, natural consequences. So, it is the next day. I have finished Yellowface. I finished it all yesterday. It was a super fast read. I mean, I devoured that book in like 5 hours, I want to say. I think I started at like 3 and then 8 o'clock I finished it. But I loved this book. I loved this book. I gave it 5 stars. Just because like I had such a hard time stopping just to film bits to be like, hey, this is what I'm reading right now. This is a check-in, because I wanted to know what was happening so bad. I have not been pulled in by a book like this one in so long. It was so refreshing to just be devoured by a book. It was fantastic, and I'm going to avoid spoilers. So basically, it's a like in her acknowledgments, Kuang says that this is really a horror story set in the loneliness of writing and publishing, and just like the very lonely act of creation, of writing, and how if you don't have friends, that can very quickly devolve. But while I think that is a theme, there's also just the overarching analysis of how the publishing industry works and how one book can get promoted off of one line, as we've seen with books like Lightlark, and other books could be completely ignored even though they're already written and ready to go and their queries go nowhere. And so that's super fascinating for me, as someone who hasn't ever dealt with the publishing industry beyond buying a book. I've never published anything. I've never queried anyone. Never even finished writing a book. Like, I have like 4 paragraphs in a document somewhere, you know? And so that part is definitely a huge component of this book and very fascinating. And it's also, there's a Twitter drag out fight that happens in this book multiple times. And if you are someone who is chronically online, it's gonna be so real. It's gonna be so real for you. Like just reading it and then being like, yeah, no, that I have seen this happen on book Twitter. I have seen this happen on BookTube. I have seen this happen in writing spaces. And it ranged anywhere from legitimate criticisms of this main character, who is definitely the villain of the story. So there was legitimate criticism of this book, and of the book within the book. And then there are just the wildest little fights that just pop out, and I'm like, if any of y'all were on Tumblr for like Voltron, same vibe. Those people are on Twitter now, okay? And they're fighting over books. the media literacy never changed, but new topic, you know. And then obviously this book is also talking about just the politics of race within publishing. Obviously the main character, she's a white woman who is basically lying to herself that she isn't doing this, but she's pretending to be Chinese American, essentially, is what she's pretending to be, so that her book would get more popularity, because she believed that her friends got that because being Chinese American, being Asian was in, and so that's why the white girl's books weren't being published. Her name's Juniper. That's why Juniper's books weren't being published, right? Not just because they were kind of mediocre and bad. And the reason the other books were being published is because they were good. But then obviously there's legitimate criticisms of those books, and like, it's very interesting because obviously this main character, she is the narrator. She is an unreliable narrator to the core, and she does not learn her lesson ever. Like, she'll be like, oh, I understand now, and then take like the worst possible takeaway from something, which is, I was laughing out loud. This book is so darkly funny. It's so darkly funny. I was just like cackling at certain pages. Because this book is so wild and chaotic, but it's good. Kuang at this point is like a must-read author for me. Like, I might not buy her book just because finances, but I will read it and probably like it. And I don't know. I read an interview from Kuang about this book just to kind of understand more what she was saying. Because while I have media literacy, I don't believe in death of the author. I believe what the author intended is sometimes a very important part of a book. And so, and she talks about how this book is kind of addressing, and I agree, this is what I also took away. So this book is addressing who has the right to tell a story. And she says that the girl who dies, that's not a spoiler, that happens in the first chapter. The girl who dies, Athena, she is Chinese American, and she feels at some point that she is pinholed into only writing stories about her family's trauma. Only writing stories about her family trauma, about Chinese history, about her Chinese heritage, but making that the main center of a book and nothing else. And like how there is a space for this from everyone, but also it boxes people in essentially by being like, well, only you can tell the story, so you have to. And that's what Kuang talks about in her interview too. Just like, she doesn't believe that people should be prevented from telling fictional stories, especially fictional stories, just because they aren't necessarily that exact demographic or had that exact experience. And she talks about how the act of writing and reading is in itself a mind-expanding adventure. It is a way that people gain empathy. It's a way that people learn about other cultures, other people, other experiences. And so having freedom to write what you want to write about is there. Now, that's not to say that people have to read your book. If you write something and you're just plain bad at it, no one has to read your book. No one has to publish your book if they don't like it, okay? But to ban people from writing completely something that they want to write about isn't the way to do it. Now, that all being said, Juniper Hayward, the main character, is the worst person that I have read in a long time. And she makes the worst possible decisions at every move. Stealing her friend's manuscript, that inherently made it not her story to tell. Just inherently not her story. She didn't write that book. She pretended that she did. And obviously, her first wrong, she then has to keep covering up with more wrongs, and so she just becomes a worse and worse person throughout the book. But it is kind of just like watching someone have a downward spiral, but she made her own bed. Like, she's just lying in it, you know what I mean? It also, like, it definitely goes over, like, some of, like, the ways that publishing isn't really there to, publishing is there to make money. That's what this book was talking about. Publishing is there to make money. And so that means that sometimes they don't care if someone fakes something, if someone like Juniper pretends to be Asian, pretends to be Chinese, to sell a book, because they don't care. They only care if they get caught, right? And they just want to make money. And also, the controversy made her more money. There needs to be some semblance of morality amongst people. But how do you regulate that? How do you, like, in an interview, do you be like, hey, what do you think X, Y, and Z? What do you think would happen there? What would you do with that? Like, how do you regulate people's morality? I mean, like, obviously don't be racist, because that's what this girl does for, like, most of the book. I guess what I was trying to say about the morality and, like, how to regulate that is, like, obviously you can screen for, like, obvious racism, right? And you can have sensitivity readers, like they have in the book, and you can have people who have those experiences in the room talking, right? You can listen to everyone. But with some of these people who are in the publishing industry in this book, they didn't care, but like no one held them accountable. This is a huge satire book. So a lot of the stuff is like fictional reimaginings of things that have happened. And also Kuang is Chinese American. She immigrated from China. So she has some stories to tell from personal experiences, right? And so obviously some of this book with the dead friend, Athena, a lot of those aspects I think come from her own personal experiences, which I think can be really valuable. So like I can see where her criticisms of being like kept in a box, kept to like a certain demographic, only advertised to a certain demographic, only allowed to talk about certain things, etc., etc. I can see where she is speaking from personal experience. I definitely think that her writing is just getting better with each book that she publishes. She did say that she's trying out different genres. Obviously, all of us probably know that at this point, that she likes to write in different genres. She's never going to write the same genre twice, because why? There's so many options, right? So I'm really curious to see what she writes next, and I'm definitely going to read it. But that being said, this book is just really fascinating. I don't really have a lot to add to the conversation. I'm kind of just like absorbing the conversation. But I definitely say definitely read this. It's a very dark satire book. It gets a little crazy towards the end, but like it's great. Don't be a Juniper Hayward. Just don't, right? I love it. I love this book. It's probably gonna be one of my favorite books for the year, just because it's May already. I'm halfway through. I think it's gonna be one of my 5 stars for the year. I don't know what else will be. That being said, I'm curious to see what y'all think of it. I know it just came out like a week ago, 2 weeks ago. I think it was like the 16th. I don't know. It came out really recently, which is why I just read it. So if any of y'all have read it, let me know. If y'all haven't, go read it. Come back. Let me know what you think. It's totally worth buying, by the way. I highlighted some of it. I have it on Kindle though, so that helps, but it's definitely worth buying. It's fantastic. 10 out of 10. Would read again. So anyway, I hope y'all are having a good night. If you're bored and have nothing to do, go read this book. If you're not bored, if you're not bored or you're working or something, I wish the best for you. All right, have a good night, y'all.